If you collapse in a crowded subway station, your chances of receiving help are actually lower than if only one person was present. Your brain would rather fit in with a passive crowd than make a scene. The story that shocked America and founded social psychology was itself a myth. But the bug in your brain, that is very real. On March 13, 1964, a young woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked and killed outside her apartment building in Queens, New York. 2 weeks later, the New York Times published a front-page article written by a reporter named Martin Gansberg under the direction of editor Abraham Rosenthal. The headline shocked the nation. It claimed that 38 respectable, law-abiding citizens had watched the killer stalk and attack Kitty for over half an hour, and not one of them called the police. The article called it a sign of urban apathy and metropolitan indifference. It painted a picture of a cold, heartless, modern society. But that story was a lie. Decades later, historians and legal scholars went back to the police files. They proved there weren't 38 witnesses. Most neighbors only heard brief, ambiguous noises. 2 people actually called the police, and one neighbor, a close friend named Sophia Farrar, ran down to the street and held Kitty in her arms as she died. The Times officially corrected the story in 2016, admitting the original report was grossly exaggerated. Yet, the parable of the 38 witnesses had already taken root in the public mind. Social psychologists Bibb Latané and John Darley read that original newspaper article and wanted to understand why groups of people freeze in emergencies. Not because humans are monsters, but because of a hidden system of social software built into our minds. To prove this mechanism, Latané and Darley designed a series of experiments. First, they invited students to Columbia University to fill out a questionnaire about college life. Some students went into a room alone, others went in with 2 actors who pretended to be fellow students. The actors were instructed to ignore any danger and act completely indifferent. As they worked on their paperwork, thick gray smoke began to billow through a vent in the wall. When students were alone, 75% reported the smoke within 2 minutes. They got up, checked the vent, and walked out to find help. But in the rooms with the passive actors, almost no one moved. The subjects sat at their desks, coughing, rubbing their eyes, and waving the smoke away. The actors shrugged, ignored the smoke, and kept filling out the questionnaires. So the subjects did the same. By the end of the 6-minute test, the room was so thick with smoke that they could barely see their papers. They literally chose the risk of choking to death over the risk of looking foolish in front of a stranger. This is the first layer of the system, pluralistic ignorance. When a situation is ambiguous, we look at other people to define it. Because everyone is trying to appear calm, everyone assumes that since no one else is panicking, there is no real emergency. Conformity is our default setting, even when the room is on fire. The second experiment took this further. Latané and Darley wanted to remove face-to-face interaction to see if groups still froze. Participants spoke over an intercom system from individual private cubicles. They were told they were talking in groups to discuss personal college problems. During the conversation, one participant, who was actually a pre-recorded tape, began to suffer a medical seizure. Over the headset, he cried out for help, stuttering that he was going to die and begging someone to find a doctor. When a participant believed they were the only person hearing the crisis, 85% ran out of their cubicles to find help. But when they believed 4 other students were also listening on the line, only 31% did. Here's the key. The participants who froze weren't cold or indifferent. The researchers observed that many of them were visibly sweating, trembling, and breathing heavily. They wanted to help, but they sat paralyzed. This is diffusion of responsibility. When other people are present, the personal pressure to act is divided by the size of the crowd. You assume someone else has already taken action or that someone else is more qualified. If everyone is responsible, then no one is. This is the software bug. Our brains evolved in small, close-knit tribes of about 50 to 150 people. In those groups, everyone's actions were visible and accountability was absolute. If you stood out, caused a scene, or raised a false alarm, you risked social embarrassment, loss of status, or tribal expulsion. And on the ancient Savanna, being cast out of the tribe was a physical death sentence. Conformity was a survival strategy. In an anonymous modern crowd, that ancient evolutionary coding misfires. Because we are surrounded by strangers, our fear of social embarrassment is dialed to maximum. We assume someone else has already taken charge, or we wait for someone else to break the silence. The bystander effect is not a sign of moral decay or urban coldness. It is an evolutionary safety switch designed to protect us from tribal rejection that goes off at the wrong time in a modern city. But once you recognize the code, you can override the glitch. If you ever find yourself in trouble in a crowded area, do not yell help or scream generally into the air. Pinpoint one specific person, point directly at them and say, "You in the red shirt, call the police." That single instruction collapses the bystander effect instantly. By centering absolute accountability on one person, you strip away their ability to diffuse responsibility. And by giving a clear, unambiguous command, you shatter the pluralistic ignorance. Everyone else will now jump in to help because the default setting of conformity has been broken. Try to observe this social programming on your next walk through a crowded street. Watch how commuters look away from minor disturbances. Notice how we copy each other's calm, expressionless faces to fit in. The crowd is waiting for a leader, and that leader is you. Which cognitive default setting should I decode next? Drop it in the comments. And watch what happens when you start paying attention to the crowd.